courtroom today?
I do.
Please point to him and describe an article of clothing that he's wearing for the record.
He's wearing a striped button-down shirt.
May the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant. Did you, at some point, have the opportunity to observe Jose Ibarra, the defendant, on scene?
Yes.
How close were you at times to Jose Ibarra?
Your normal conversation distance, maybe a foot and a half.
Did you observe any injuries to Jose Ibarra?
I did.
What injuries did you observe?
While speaking to him, I noticed on his right arm, his bicep, there was a scratch, which I identified as a potential defensive wound. On his left arm, he had a forearm scratch that was very similar, which in my mind, looked like fingernail scratches to me. While he was sitting there speaking to us, I also noticed on his left wrist, just below the palm, he had a puncture, maybe a half an inch wide, that through my experiences of playing sports in high school and receiving the same injury from fingernails in football, I could see like wet flesh, like almost like it was fresh. It wasn't very old, possibly still irritated. And as he moved his wrists, when I was looking at them closely, I could actually see the liquid, or I guess body fluids that would be in that cut, kind of reflecting with light.
Did you observe, I'm going to publish a few of the photos. Court, would you please toggle over it, Your Honor? States 186. Who is that?
That's Jose Ibarra.
And how would you describe his beard and mustache situation?
It's thicker than Diego's, if I remember correctly. Not well maintained. He had sort of a neck beard. Wasn't very long, but it was definitely
the way he looked on February 23rd as far as weight. When I say he, I mean Jose.
No.
States 188, what's that?
That is the back of Jose's head.
187?
That is a close-up picture of Jose's mouth and lips. We were concerned. It looked like his lips were red and irritated.
189?
A side profile picture. That's the right arm with a scratch.
191?
That would be the left lower wrist, forearm area with a scratch, as well as the palm.
192?
That is his left palm that had some bruising on the thumb palm area. And if you kind of look below that area, you'll see an irritated red area, which is where I saw that fingernail puncture mark.
Okay, the one that was pussing or oozing?
Yeah, it was.
Could you please point to that in 192? At the middle of the screen, thank you.
Right.
193?
That's another picture of his right arm with a tattoo, but also you can see the fingernail scratch.
And 194?
That is a scratch on his forearm.
At some point, did you question Jose Ibarra about his injuries?
I used a translator. Yes, we did.
Who was that translator?
That was Officer or Corporal Rafael Sayed.
And is that the individual, Rafael Sayan? Did we just see him in now 1519 in your body cam video?
Correct.
I'll back it up a little bit. Is that Rafael Sayan?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And may I have one moment with Council? Sergeant Epps, at this point in your day, how would you describe the legal status of Jose Ibarra?
He's detained.
And in that detention, did Officer Sayin and did you ask Officer Sayin to advise him that he had been detained?
Correct. Yes, we did.
And did you ask Officer Sayin to advise him that he was not under arrest?
Yes, we did.
And did you ask Officer Sayin to advise them that you were obtaining a search warrant for their apartment?
We did.
Okay. So during this detention of the defendant, first of all, tell me, were they allowed to move freely around in y'all's presence?
Yes. I think mainly Rosabelli was standing up the whole time. She was walking around freely. They were talking to each other. They started smoking cigarettes. We heard people laughing. I even made the comment to my officers of let's make sure we're listening to what they're saying in case we get some utterances. But so, yeah, we weren't restricting their rights to talk to each other or anything like that.
And who specifically did you see smoking?
I believe at one point I did see Jose smoking a cigarette.
So he was allowed to smoke a cigarette.
Yes.
Is he handcuffed in any way?
No.
And their conversations amongst, I guess the four of them were talking amongst one another. You said you heard laughter about how many times?
I only heard it probably once, and it was from, I think, Rosabelli, maybe Arhenis. I didn't know what they were talking about. From what I understand, talking to Officer Sayin, they thought it was amusing how many police cars we had, and that the mobile command center was showing up in the parking lot.
During this time period, did you ask Officer Sayin to ask Jose Ibarra how he got his injuries?
We did.
Okay. And was that captured on your body cam video?
I believe so.
And if I were to continue to play this, would that be the part that we're about to see? What I'm going to do is wait till Officer Sayin is here so he can translate what was being said. And I think, Your Honor, that completes my questions except for this. Sergeant Epps, did you ever search the apartment yourself that day?
No.
And who did the search of the apartment?
To my knowledge, GBI agents.
Did you arrest the defendant for anything that day?
No.
And at some point during this day, did you learn or did you see him get arrested by ACCPD for a bench warrant that was outstanding for Athens, Clarke County?
Yes, ma'am.
And Your Honor, all of that evidence has already been admitted through the stipulation of Sergeant Johnson. Attached to Sergeant Johnson's stipulation are the exhibits from his testimony, including the bench warrant that this defendant was arrested for that day. So I just want to close the record on that. And I'll pass the witness.
Sure. Good morning, officer.
Good morning.
When you first saw Diego Ibarra, he was wearing the hat that you had seen your suspect wearing in his picture. Ibarra, Diego Ibarra.
On Diego, initially or throughout my interactions with him?
What's the closest you got to him, I guess?
Very close, a foot away.
And when you looked at the hat, on the back of the hat, on the brim, you could see dirt.
What I believe to be dirt.
Is it fair to say that it looked like red clay dirt?
I think initially that's what I thought it was.
You also at some point saw that Diego had a UGA employment ID.
Correct.
And that ID allows him access to some of UGA's campus, right?
Yes, yeah.
And you were informed that Diego was first seen walking towards the Rogers Road bus stop.
Correct.
And that bus stop is specifically a place where UGA buses can come and pick up students, right?
Yes.
And you also were able to confirm through investigating your internal UGA database that Diego did work for a UGA department. Is that correct?
Correct.
He worked for the Bolton Dining Commons.
There were some issues figuring out exactly where, because it doesn't necessarily say their their place of employment, it'll say he's in that division.
I
So once we kind of figured that out later on, but yeah, we knew he was an employee for dining.
So you did eventually establish that he worked at Bolton Dining Commons?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You also noticed that Diego was wearing dark, long pants.
Yes.
And we know that the dark, long pants are similar to the ones that were in the video of the man walking toward the dumpster.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
When you first saw Jose Ibarra, he was asleep, right?
Yes, I believe so.
You had trouble waking him up.
I wouldn't say trouble waking up. I just had to talk very loudly.
Okay. And you also had to kind of rap on the door frame.
Yeah, to wake him up.
And you would agree he was a little slow initially getting up and out of bed.
Correct.
But you believe that was because he was confused having just woken up.
I didn't know what he was doing. I couldn't see his head. I said there was a guy asleep right here because he was in a sleep posture under covers. I couldn't see his hands. So he was slow. I could see the possible confusion because I'm not very good at speaking Spanish. I'm sure that to a Spanish speaker, I have a foreign accent, like a Spanish speaker may have a foreign accent with English to me. So that's why I could see why there may have been some confusion for him.
But to be clear, you felt that his slowness to respond was due to your Spanish speaking, his having woken up rather than passively resisting.
Possibly, yes.
And that's what you put in your report.
Yes.
When Officer Bridges came in and delivered the command to show his hands, Mr. Ibarra immediately put his hands in the air.
Correct.
Now, when you detained all the individuals, they were detained outside of the apartment,
Correct.
and it was February morning, right?
Correct.
It was a little bit chilly.
It was kind of similar, honestly, if I remember correctly, the weather now, about 50s, 60s.
At some point, Rose Bailey asked to get a jacket because she was cold.
As I was leaving the apartment, I was informed by, I believe, Bridges, or maybe it was an Athens officer, that she wanted a jacket.
When you observed the markings on Jose Ibarra, you did not observe any blood in the wounds.
I didn't see blood, no.
They did not appear deep enough to draw blood.
No, the only one that I think could reasonably draw blood, which obviously the scratches that I wouldn't say would be dripping blood, there could have been blood present, but that left puncture on the wrist that I described, I could see there being more blood coming from that than his scratches.
Did you observe any scabbing?
No.
Okay. Just one moment, please. I don't have any further questions at this time.
Redirect.
No, sir.
Excused.
Yes, sir.
No objection.
Excused. Call your next witness.
State calls Raphael Sayin. You can raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today will be, in the matter of the state of Georgia versus Jose Ibarra, will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please take a seat, state and spell your first and last name.
My first name is Raphael, Rafael, and my last name is Sayan, Sayan.
Where do you work?
University of Georgia Police Department,
How long have you worked there?
5 years.
What are your current duties and responsibilities?
I'm a patrol corporal, and my duties are to train new officers so they're ready to be on the road.
As a patrol corporal, you wear a uniform like you are today in court,
Yes, ma'am.
and do you also drive a patrol car
Yes.
and wear body cam videos as well?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask you, Corporal Sayin, can you speak Spanish?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
How do you know how to speak Spanish?
I've been speaking it for 34 years. I'm bilingual, fluent. Parents are from Peru. Went to Peru many, many times. My wife is also Latina, so we speak Spanish at home very often.
Okay. And your wife is from what country?
Colombia.
So you speak Spanish, and your parents are from Peru.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
And are you familiar with the South American type of dialect of people who speak Spanish?
Yes, ma'am. I am.
Tell us a little bit about that.
South American Spanish.
Yes.
Yeah, it's well, it has its own dialect. It's very different from Central American Spanish and what I would call Mexican dialect too. So it's easy to pick up when you hear it, especially living within those communities for many, many years and growing up with it. But there is a different dialect to it.
Do you believe you're well versed in South American Spanish?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you read in Spanish and write in Spanish?
Yes, ma'am. I can.
And do you speak Spanish in your household still?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you working on February 23rd of 2024?
I was.
Did you get a call from Sergeant Epps and asked to come and help translate at an apartment complex?
Yes, ma'am. I did.
And about what time did you get there?
I would say it was right before 9 in the morning, so 8 in the morning. Right, 8:45ish.
8:45ish. When you got there, what were you asked to do?
Once I arrived, once they pulled everybody out of the apartment, I was requested to observe and to translate.
Did you do so?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
I want to ask you about all 4 individuals out there. First of all, did you have the opportunity to converse in Spanish with a Diego Ibarra?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Did you have the opportunity to converse in Spanish with a Rosbelli Flores?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have the opportunity to converse in Spanish with Argenis Ibarra?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you have the opportunity to speak in Spanish to Jose Ibarra?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have any difficulties understanding their Spanish?
No.
Did they seem to have any difficulties understanding your Spanish?
By them responding to my questions and us conversing, I would say that no, they understood me very well.
The person named Jose Ibarra, did you question him that day and ask him some questions about injuries that were observed on him?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
What language did you ask him those questions?
It would be in Spanish.
And what language did he respond back to you?
In Spanish.
And at this point, before we get into the statements, Your Honor, just for the record, Defense Counsel has not filed for a Jackson Deno, and I'll let her take it from there.
We will not be raising a Jackson Deno issue at this time.
When you were conversing or speaking with Jose Ibarra that day and asking him about injuries, about how close were you to him?
I would say roughly between 3 to 4 feet.
And prior to, and if you could sit a little into that microphone, thank you. Prior to you asking him questions about his injuries, were the 4 residents of that apartment allowed to kind of move around, and were they talking to one another?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, they were speaking to one another, laughing. Yeah.
And how would you describe the vibe between them and what was going on at this time?
It seemed very relaxed. There was a lot of laughing, giggling, especially when they were talking about how they were woken up, pulled out of the apartment, smoking. So I would say the vibe or the atmosphere was very relaxed and calm.
And may I approach the witness, Your Honor? All right, I'm showing you what's been already admitted as State's Exhibit 177. And have you seen it? And you know what? It's already admitted. So I'm going to show you something from it. Sorry, it's had it. But you have seen 177?
Yes, I have.
And what is it?
It's going to be axon footage.
From your conversation with Jose Ibarra
That's correct. Yes.
on the 23rd day of February 2024?
Yes, ma'am. And it would be Sergeant Epps' axon footage.
So you had footage and he had footage, right?
Correct.
And do you see that yourself in this footage? I'm going to publish the 3rd video in States 177. Do you see yourself right there?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Oh, I'm sorry. We got to talk a little bit. and this may be a little difficult to do. Hopefully, you're going to be able to hear it. But what I would like you to do for the record is translate to us exactly what you asked him and exactly what he said back to you. And if you have problems hearing it and you need to hear it again, just let me know and we'll rewind it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Hold on a second. Well, we have no volume at all. So hold on just one moment. I'll start it over. All right. I want to start it over. There we go.
My friend, can you do me a favor?
All right. Let's say that again.
My friend, can you do me a favor?
Okay. So you said, my friend, can you do me a favor?
Mhm.
And why did you ask the question in that manner?
It's just my mannerisms when I speak Spanish. I'm very respectful to folks. It's just the way I was raised, and it's Latin American culture.
All right.
I asked them, I have a question. Why? And then I point to to my left knuckle. Why is this red? He responds by saying that because of the cold.
Because of the what?
The cold. I asked him what happened there, and
And for the record, we're at 15:20 of the video, and you are, or he is pointing to his left arm.
it would be his right
Or his
bicep.
right arm, sorry.
Mhm.
A little backwards. His right bicep. Okay. And you asked what?
I asked what happened there, and he said that he had a scratch, but he didn't exactly explain from where or how. I asked him about another scratch on his where his left wrist meets his left forearm. He, if you could actually just repeat that portion
I will.
right there. I asked him what happened there.
Okay. What you said what?
What happened there? Pause it, please. He says, I don't have anything there. There's nothing there. And then he starts pointing at it again, saying that, oh, it's just a scratch.
So when he said that there was nothing there, could you see something there?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
What could you see?
It looked like I don't know exactly know the time, but I could see there was still a little bit of pus in it.
Pus?
So it didn't look very old.
Okay.
But I could see that there was a scratch on his wrist. I asked him to raise up his sleeves.
And the scratch over there is, do you hit the face or anything? What's it?
I asked him, were you struck in the mouth? He responded to me that no, he was not struck in the mouth, and that it's the cold air on his lips, that he uses chapstick. I asked him to raise up his hair. I also asked him to raise up both sides of his hair.
What did you observe when he raised up his hair?
I could see that there was a red mark going across, like as if he had been wearing a hat. He explains to me that he wears a hat, a gorra, a hat, and continue.
What kind of hat did you wear?
I then ask him what type of hat, and he motions over to Diego, who's sitting to the right of him, that it's a hat very similar to that one that was on Diego's head.
Thank you.
And does that complete your conversation with Jose Ibarra about his injuries?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask you, at some point, does he use the word for nail in Spanish?
Oh, no, he doesn't.
Okay. Do you use that word?
In Spanish?
Yes.
The nail, so the word in Spanish for nail, as in like a fingernail, would be, excuse me, sorry, I apologize. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Yeah.
But it would be uña.
Okay. And
But I didn't hear that.
Okay.
When he didn't respond back to me.
he did not.
Mhm.
What was the question that you asked with Unya that he did not respond back to?
Well, I had asked him how did he receive those scratches, and he didn't give me a clear answer at all.
Hold on. I know. Okay. I want to have you hear this one section, Corporal saying. Okay, hold on.
Okay, reading the map, the red letters to the phone. And the scratch over there is, Do you hit the face or anything? What's it, not pegado la boca? No.
Sorry, there we go. We're back at 15:19. If you could just listen to this again.
The black is on. Black is that. Black and that.
All right. Did you use the word uña in those questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay. What word did you use?
It sounds like I didn't really use a word. I asked what had happened there. Mhm.
Keep it up. What happened there?
And his answer to the specific one about the left wrist was what?
Well, first he said where. I mean,
Okay.
he was, the way it looked like he was acting as if there was nothing there, but I could clearly see there was a scratch. Mhm.
At first, that's what he said, where, and then what?
And then he pointed at it, and again, he doesn't really tell me how he got it.
One moment, Your Honor. One final thing. Corporal saying, the phrase in Spanish, yo tengo, what does that mean literally?
Yo tengo would exactly translate to I have.
That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
This all occurred on February morning,
Yes, ma'am.
and I believe you said you arrived around 8:45 in the morning.
8:45-ish.
And this was a little bit after that, but still in the morning.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Ibarra was wearing a short sleeve shirt
Yes, he was.
and shorts
Yes.
and slides,
And I would say so.
and he didn't have any sort of jacket or other covering.
No, ma'am.
Just a moment. And when you asked him about a hat, and he gestures towards, Mr. Diego Ibarra, he doesn't say, I wore that hat. He says, I wear a hat like that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's what I heard.
All right. No further questions.
Redirect.
No, sir.
You can excuse.
Yes, sir.
Any objections?
No objection.
You're excused. You call your next.
State Clause, Special Agent Annie Mormon. raise your right hand, please, ma'am. You swear from the testimony you will give today will be the truth. And the matter of state of Georgia versus Jose Ibarra will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
You please take a seat, spell your first and last name.
My name's Annie Mormon, A-N-N-I-E, Mormon, M-O-O-R-M-A-N.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a special agent with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
How long have you worked for the GBI?
4 years.
What are your duties and responsibilities?
I currently serve as the crime scene specialist with the Region 11 GBI office.
What do you do as a crime scene specialist?
Collect evidence, process scenes, send evidence to the crime lab.
And tell the court a little bit about your training for your job.
Sure. So we participate in a GBI Special Academy, which is 13 weeks. And then on top of that, we participate in a lot of extensive training to become a crime scene specialist, which includes advanced training in blunt stain pattern analysis, reconstruction of crime scenes and such.
Were you asked to assist the University of Georgia Police Department in searching an apartment on the 23rd day of February 2024?
Yes.
Could you tell the court what was the address of that location and about what time did you get there and what you did when you got there?
Sure. The address was 2085 South Millage Avenue, the Argo Apartments, apartment D126. I had been in that apartment complex from approximately 11 a.m. Helping do neighborhood canvases, specifically to search that apartment. We didn't start that until approximately 3:30 in the afternoon.
Tell us a little bit about the canvassing process. What was going on with the canvassing of the apartment and about what time did that start?
I believe it started around 10:30 or 11 a.m. There were many GBI agents on that property, probably somewhere between 40 and 50 of us. We had broken down into smaller groups to speak to each individual apartment occupant to try to get any sort of information we could.
And then at some point you turned your attention to searching the apartment.
Yes.
Prior to searching that apartment, was a search warrant obtained?
Yes, it was.
Tell the court, first of all, in general terms, describe the apartment, D126.
Sure. The apartment was approximately 700 square feet, maybe 20 by 35 feet. It was one room essentially. It was kind of an open space living area that had 2 beds and a couch with a small closet, a small kitchen in the northwest corner, and a bathroom in the northwest corner.
When you searched the apartment, did you take photographs?
Yes, I did.
And did you also do a crime scene sketch or a sketch of the apartment?
I did.
I'm going to hand you a series of photographs. They are marked for the record as states 195 through 235, with the exception of states 209 through 215 and 225 and 226. Those numbers will not be used. So handing you this stack, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay? Do you recognize those items?
I do, yes.
The 235, can we start with that? What is it?
This is a crime scene sketch I created after searching the apartment.
Is that an accurate sketch of the apartment?
Yes.
So we submit 235.
No objection.
235 submitted.
And then the remaining of the exhibits that I handed you, what are they?
These are photographs that I took during that search.
And do those photographs fairly and accurately depict the apartment and the items inside the apartment as you saw them on the 23rd day of February, 2024?
Yes.
State would move to admit state's exhibits 195 through 234, with the exception of 209 through 215. Also accepting 225 to 226, those numbers will not be used.
No objection.
Admitted.
And may I request permission to publish?
No.
I've set some gloves in front of you. I don't know, I don't think you're gonna need them. I don't know, just in case, if you need to use them, go ahead.
Okay.
First of all, in searching the apartment, let me come back and grab those exhibits. And I'll give you these if you might need them. Okay, thank you. And yeah, it's starting first with 235, could you tell the court what we're looking at here?
Sure, this is a sketch of the apartment, D126 that I searched that day.
How many beds were in that apartment and did you note them?
There were 2 queen-size beds along with a sofa.
Okay, where are they noted for the record? If you could use, there's a pointer, there should be a pointer next to you.
Am I pointing at this TV?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Sure. So this is the west wall. There was a queen-size bed here with the head towards the kitchen. And then there was another queen-size bed located on the south wall here with the head towards the west wall, and a sofa here between the closet area and this bed.
Where's the front door in that image, 235 then?
The front door is here. It's catty-cornered in the apartment.
At the bottom of the
Yes,
the exhibit?
the southwest corner.
States 195, what are we looking at there?
This is the front door of the apartment here. You go into an alcove. There's an apartment on your left and an apartment on your right. And this is the door to D126.
And that's the blue door that we see in States 195 for the record.
Yes.
States 197, what does that depict and where's that photograph taken from?
So this is taken from the doorway of apartment D126 looking into the apartment. This is the bed located on the west, the head of the bed is located on the west wall there. And this is the front of the apartment to the south.
199.
So this is looking into the apartment. This is the bed located along the west wall with the kitchen area here and the bathroom in the back right corner in the closet area.
Was this photograph taken from the perspective where you're actually standing at the front door?
Yes, the door is to my left here.
States 200.
So this, I'm standing in the entrance to the kitchen area, looking back at the front door. This is the south wall of the apartment with the queen size bed on the west wall and the other queen size bed here on the, I'm sorry, yes. That one.
States 200. 202.
Sure, I'm standing in the middle kind of the open living space, and this is the closet located in the apartment.
204.
This is the bathroom located in the northeast corner of the apartment.
206.
That's from inside the bathroom, the tub that was located in that bathroom in the apartment.
208.
That is the kitchen area located in the apartment.
Now, when you were in this apartment, first of all, how long did it take you to search the apartment?
I believe I was there for approximately 8 hours.
Were you looking for, well, what were you looking for?
A number of things that were listed on the search warrant, specific clothing, any sort of blood, any sort of blunt object that could have been used to create Ms. Riley's injuries.
For blood, how did you search for blood?
So we visually search for blood, anything that looks like it may be blood, or even if it doesn't necessarily look that way, if it just looks odd, then we can do tests to see if it is blood.
And did you find any items with blood inside that apartment?
No, we did not.
Did you at some point seize some gloves?
We did.
Tell me about the gloves and where were they and why did you take them?
So in the search of this kitchen area, specifically this left-hand top drawer, there were located three, is what I would describe as utility type kitchen gloves, plastic in nature. Looked like restaurant style, like you would use in a kitchen gloves.
Showing you 216, what does that mean?
So upon opening the drawer, the gloves were located here. It's kind of dark, but you can see the outline of the gloves there.
Why were those gloves of interest to you?
Earlier in the day, officers had located gloves that had been described as looking sort of like these from a bush at the apartment complex.
Did you seize these gloves?
I did.
And when you seized them, how did you collect them?
They were collected and placed into an evidence bag.
And did you seal it?
Yes, I did.
And was it eventually transported to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation for analysis?
I transported it to the UGA Police Department and turned it over to their evidence personnel, Daniel Saunders.
And when you transported it to him, did you deliver it to him sealed?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked. Right here, sorry. As State's Exhibit 244 for the record. Do you recognize 244? If you could look inside that for me.
Would like me to remove it? From the
Yes,
back.
if you could to look at it.
Yes.
Do you recognize those items inside the bag?
Yes.
What are they?
These are the gloves that I collected on the night of the 23rd, excuse me.
The state removed to admit States 240, what is it? Sorry, 244. And request permission.
244 submitted.
I'm just gonna take one of them out,
Okay.
all right? And then I'll put the rest back in. Those are their gloves. At some point, did you observe or see any electronic devices in the apartment?
I did, yes.
How many?
I believe there were 2 tablets and 7 cell phones that we seized.
I want to talk to you specifically about State's Exhibit 219. What does that depict?
So those were 2 cellular devices that we found and seized.
On what bed were these 2 devices? And I'm going to go back to your crime scene sketch for that. So the 2 devices that we see in State's Exhibit 219, going back to your crime scene sketch of 235, what bed were those devices seized from?
So they were on the bed along the west wall here at the head of this bed near the kitchen.
All right, thank you. And while you were searching this apartment, were 2 of the residents who resided inside that apartment outside?
Yes.
Who are those two individuals?
Rose Belly, Flores Bello, and Argenis.
If you could adjust your microphone a little
I'm
bit
so
more
sorry.
closer, yes, just if you could scoot up a little bit, because
Sure.
when you speak, I'm having a hard time hearing you. And I need to make sure they can hear you over here as well. So those two individuals were who?
Rose Belly, Flores Bello, and Argenis Ibarra.
And those individuals were outside. At
Yes.
some point, did you gain permission from them, and did you identify electronic devices that belonged to both of those individuals?
Yes, we did.
Rose Belly and Argenis.
Yes,
And were those devices inside the apartment as well?
they were.
With those devices, what did you do with the two devices that belonged to Argenis and Rose Belly?
So I did not have a conversation with Rose Belly, but there were additional agents on scene, Agent Cameron Karate and Special Agent in Charge Trent Hillsman, who had a conversation with Rose Belly and determined which phones belonged to she and Argenis. Those phones were removed from the apartment and they processed those phones on scene.
And did those two give y'all consent to process their phones?
They did.
Were they waiting for you all to finish your search?
Yes.
So how long were they waiting for you? Like how long? You told us you were there 8 hours, 9 hours?
Yes, I was there approximately 8 hours from 3:30 in the afternoon till 11:30 at night.
At some point, did Rose Belly identify two devices that belonged to Jose?
Yes.
And did you seize those two devices?
Yes, we did.
Are those two devices the two devices that we saw on the bed in the photograph that
They
we've just
are.
shown?
Yes.
Well, there won't be a confrontation issue because she's going to be our next witness. And I would offer that only for, to explain the officer's conduct about why she seized the device, but any confrontation issue will be cleared up by the next witness, or will be cured by the next witness.
So I will overrule the objection at this time. If it needs to be made later, I'll reconsider.
Handing you now what has been marked as State's Exhibits 245 and 246. Ask that you recognize those two devices, or do you recognize those items?
I do, yes.
What are 245 and 246?
These are the cell phones that were located on that bed on the west wall of the apartment.
And are those the cell phones that you seized that evening?
Yes.
What did you tell us about the seizure of those two devices? But before I do that, I want to move to admit 245 and 246.
Your Honor, we're still maintaining our objections that have already been read, motion to suppress, but subject to those objections will not be.
Those objections are noted, and I will admit it. 245, 246.
Tell us about the seizure of 245 and 246, these two cell phones.
So they were located, like I said earlier, on the bed along the west wall. We believed that exigent circumstances existed to seize those, even though they were not specifically written within the search warrant. We believed we would be covered because we would not be searching those at that time. We knew that search warrants would be obtained later to search those. We were fearful that had we left them, the phones could be destroyed in any type of manner. We were also worried about the evidence located on those phones possibly being disturbed. I'm sorry, my word just left me, but being able to be wiped should we not take those with us.
Could you put those two phones in airplane mode? Were you able to do that? Or
So we were not able to put them in airplane mode. We did not have access to them. We didn't know the codes to them and were not able to get into them.
So if you were not able to get into them to put them in airplane mode, were you able to search those phones at all?
No.
How much clothing did you look through in that apartment?
There was a lot of clothing.
And did you look at all of it?
Yes.
And were you looking for specific items?
We were looking for specific items.
I'm going to show you an exhibit that I will link up with FBI agent. I'm gonna show you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 247. Do you recognize the person and those items inside that exhibit?
Yes.
Okay. Who do you recognize in that exhibit?
So that is Mr. Ibarra,
And then Mr. Ibarra in this courtroom?
Jose, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Jose Ibarra.
And those items that you see in that image, were you looking for those items that evening in apartment D26?
Yes, we were.
I would move to admit 247, and I'll link it up with the next second.
Your Honor, my understanding is that is a photo that's derived from the forensic review of the phone. So I'm not certain, this witness says she wasn't able to search the phone. I don't think she's the proper witness to lay the foundation for it.
Well, that's why I'm going to complete the loop with Special Agent Hipkiss, but she's at least identified the defendant and the clothing that she was looking for. So I believe it's a proper thing to ask her about, and then I can, when Special Agent Hipkiss testifies, I can complete the loop of this photo.
Well, I will reconsider the admissibility once we hear the further testimony from another witness.
Thank you.
So I'm not admitting it at this time.
Okay. The items that we see in States 247, Jose Ibarra carrying and wearing, did you ever find those items inside your search of the apartment D126?
No, we did not.
I believe that's it, Your Honor. I'll pass the witness.
Cross-examine.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Before you conducted a search of the apartment, you were involved in the neighborhood canvas.
Yes.
And without telling me what you said, you spoke with an individual named Jennifer Slonaker.
Yes.
And while you were speaking to Ms. Slonaker, another individual kind of voluntarily joined the conversation.
Correct.
And that individual was Stephanie Slayton.
Correct.
And while you were speaking with Ms. Slayton, you were up on the second floor balcony of building D in the apartment complex.
Yes.
So you were a balcony above where the police had secured the apartment residence below.
Yes.
And you and Ms. Slayton and Ms. Slonaker could occasionally hear snippets of conversation from below.
Yes.
Ms. Slayton was acting very fearful, was she not?
Yes.
And she told you that she was fearful of.
Objection, hearsay.
Your Honor, this is not hearsay because we're not using it for the truth of the matter asserted, but for their state of mind.
Whose state of mind? Not of the declarant who's not present.
It's for the effect on the listener, Ms. Slayton, her state of mind.
But that Ms. Slayton is not present, so that makes it hearsay and not relevant what her state of mind is. Until they get the declarant here, that is hearsay.
Both.
Sustain the objection.
Okay, Your Honor, just one moment. I'll proffer that we are calling Ms. Slayton. She's under subpoena. We'll be here tomorrow. This is primarily for efficiency's sake. I just want to get some demeanor testimony and statements from Ms. Agent Mormon so we don't have to recall her.
The demeanor questions are appropriate. Anything that Ms. Slayton said, I maintain is hearsay. If Ms. Slayton takes a stand and denies saying those things, then they will have to recall this witness. But that's just that does not make these statements admissible. They have to call the declarant first.
The objection is still overruled, but I agree that demeanor questions are appropriate.
So after Ms. Slayton acted fearfully, you ended up moving her across the street.
No, we did not move her across the street. We finished our interview with her there and then conducted a secondary interview when we found her across the street at the gas station.
And this was across the street from the apartment complex?
Yes.
And it was later that same morning?
Yes.
When, now let's turn it into the search of the apartment. Basically, all of the apartment is one room, right?
Essentially barring the bathroom.
And you would agree with me that it was pretty messy when you arrived.
Fairly.
There were piles of clothes everywhere.
Yes.
The apartment only had one closet,
Correct.
and the closet was partially filled with some boxes and other detritus.
Correct.
And you spent 8 hours, you said, searching the apartment.
Yes.
At what time into that 8 hours did you notice the cell phones on the bed?
I guess we noticed them. I started at the front door with the search. We started at the end of the bed on the right-hand side as you walk in the door. And we were going through there were several pieces of luggage that were filled with clothing that we were going through. So it wasn't until I finished the search of all those clothes that we ran into the first cell phones on the floor next to that bed.
And what was that, an hour into your search? Can you estimate how long that was?
I would have to look at the timestamps on my photographs to be for sure, but it may be an hour or two.
And then you mentioned that you did some tests for blood. Can you explain what those tests are?
Sure. So it's a presumptive blood test. So it's a phenolphthalein presumptive blood test. There was only one area in the apartment that I questioned that looked like it could possibly be blood. When you take a sample of that substance, you add different chemicals to it, and if it were to show pink, then it confirms that it is an area of blood, excuse me. And then if it does not turn pink, then it's not, and it did not.
Now, in the apartment, you would agree with me that there were 3 units somebody could sleep on.
Sure.
There was the couch on
And
the
2
right
beds.
side and 2 beds.
Yes.
And you were aware that there were 5 residents that lived in that house or apartment.
It's only aware of 4.
Okay. Were you aware that the queen side bed on the left side of the apartment was being shared?
On the left, are you talking about the west wall
Yes.
where we found the funds?
Yes.
I did not know if it was being shared.
No further questions.
Briefly, you had the opportunity to interview Ms. Laken that morning, correct?
I did.
And without telling us anything that she said, did you observe her demeanor?
Yes.
Were you able to get close enough to her to see if you could smell or determine if she was under the influence of alcohol?
Yes.
What was your impression of her, whether she was under the influence of alcohol at the time that you were talking to her?
I would say that she was. She smelled very strongly of alcohol.
And your test for blood, you did only one presumptive test in the apartment.
Yes.
Is the first part of the process a visual examination?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because what you see tells you information that you need.
So is there any way for you to like spray the entire apartment with something to see if there's blood? Or do you actually look for blood first and then test it if you suspect it?
We actually look for it first.
With your eyes?
Mhm.
That's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor.
No, you are.
Should be excused.
Yes, sir.
No objection. Subject to recall for the misleading statement.
Take direction, if you would, from Ms. Ross.
Yes, sir. I'll bring her back if she's needed, and I'll keep in contact with her.
This is probably a good time to take a recess. We'll take 10 minutes. Before the next witness is called, let me announce that this next witness is not to be filmed or photographed. So I'm going to ask the video to turn away from this witness, and I've already spoken to the still photographer about that. All right. You may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State calls Rosbelli Flores Bello. And Your Honor, we will also be using interpreter Carlos Flores.
All right. That's fine. If you'll raise your right hand, you swear that you will truthfully and accurately translate English to Spanish and Spanish to English to the best of your ability.
I did, Judge, to the best of my ability.
And state your name, please.
Carlos T. Lares, Lares, and state certified coordinator.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Come on. You may have to bend it down some. All right.
Will you raise your right hand?
Levante, por favor, la mano derecha. Como pueda.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to present in the state versus Jose Antonio Ibarra shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Jura decir la verdad, toda la verdad y únicamente la verdad en el caso del estado de Georgia contra José Ibarra. ¿Lo jura por Dios?
Sí.
Yes.
Judge, can we just have just a second? We're just trying to figure out the interpreter situation so that it's not 4 different times of translation and just like.
Okay,
explain to Mr.
that'd be
Ibarra
fine.
how-
Take a moment.
Vamos a
Will you
proceder
state your name for the record?
para que conste en la acta. Rosbelli Lisbel
Flores Bello.
Flores Bello.
And can you spell that?
¿Puedes deletrear tus nombres y apellidos?
R
R
O
O
S
S
B
B
E
E
L
L
I
I
E
E
L
L
I
E
S
S
B
perdón
B
B B
E
A
R
R
Flores
Flores
Bello.
Bello. Rosbelli. Second word Elis. Bar. Flores Bello.
And where are you from, Miss Flores Bello?
Señora Flores Bello, ¿de dónde es usted?
Venezuela.
Venezuela.
And how long have you been here in the United States?
¿Cuánto tiempo ya tiene en los Estados Unidos?
Un año.
A year.
Un año y 5 meses.
A year and 5 months.
Okay, and when did you, what month did you come here?
¿En qué mes llegó usted aquí?
En septiembre del año pasado.
In September of last year.
And who did you come here with?
¿Y con quién aquí se mueve? ¿Con quién está?
Aquí ahorita.
Here right now?
And when you came to the United States, who did you come here with?
¿Con quién vino a los Estados Unidos cuando vino la primera vez?
Con mi pareja.
With my partner.
Okay. And where did you live first before you came here to Athens?
¿Y dónde vivió usted primero antes de llegar a Athens?
en Queens, Nueva York.
in Queens, New York.
Okay. And while you were there, did you meet the defendant, Jose Ibarra?
Estando entonces allá, ¿conoció usted al acusado, el señor José Ibarra?
Sí.
Yes.
And how did you meet him?
¿Cómo fue que lo conoció?
Por medio de la suegra.
Through a mother-in-law.
Did you get to know him well in New York?
¿Lo llegaste a conocer bien en Nueva York?
No, duré como un mes conociéndolo. Que cuando me vine aquí a Athens era como un mes conociéndolo.
No, a month knowing him. When I arrived in Athens, I have known him for a month.
And what do you call him?
¿Y cómo lo llama usted a él?
Víctor.
Víctor.
Is that the nickname that other people call him as well?
También otras personas lo llaman a él por ese nombre, ¿sí o no?
Sí.
Yes.
So tell us about coming to Athens. Why did you leave New York to come to Athens?
Cuéntenos sobre el venirse a Athens. ¿Por qué dejó Nueva York para venirse aquí a Athens?
Porque él me dijo que aquí había posibilidad de trabajo, pues el hermano.
Because he told me that there would be a possibility of finding work here. The brother, el hermano,
El hermano de él lo llamaba constante de que aquí había trabajo y por eso fue.
his brother called him constantly, telling him that there was work here. That was why
Por eso fue que nos dirigimos acá.
we decided to come here.
And when you said his brother told you, who are you talking about? Which one of his brothers?
Cuando te refieres a que el hermano les dijo, ¿a cuál de sus hermanos te refieres?
Diego Ibarra.
Diego Ibarra.
And did he have any other brothers that you got to know?
¿Llegaste a conocer a otros hermanos que él tenía?
Argenis Ibarra.
Argenis Ibarra.
And was there anyone else that you got to know that you lived with while you were here in Athens?
¿Alguien más que llegaste a conocer que vivió con ustedes aquí en Athens?
Giancarlo Hernández.
Giancarlos Hernández.
And how did you get to Athens?
¿Y cómo llegaron a Athens?
En Nueva York pedimos en Manhattan,
In New York, we asked in Manhattan,
en el Hotel Roosevelt.
and Hotel Roosevelt.
De Manhattan pedimos un vuelo humanitario aquí hasta
En-
acá, hasta Atlanta.
In Manhattan, we requested for a humanitarian flight to come here to Atlanta.
And when was that?
¿Y cuándo fue eso?
Como de 9 a 10 de septiembre.
Around the 9th, 10th of September.
And where did you go when you arrived in Athens?
Y cuando llegó a Athens, ¿a dónde fue?
Al aeropuerto Airport.
To the airport.
Al aeropuerto de Atlanta.
Airport.
Jackson Airport.
Atlanta Airport, Jackson Airport.
And then you came to Athens?
Y luego llegaron y se vinieron a Athens.
Nos fue a recoger un amigo de Diego Ibarra.
A friend of Diego Ibarra came over to pick us up.
And where did you live when you were in Athens?
¿Y dónde entonces terminaron viviendo cuando llegaron a Athens?
A donde a él lo arrestaron.
Where he was arrested.
Was that the Argo Apartments?
Interpreter requires a repetition.
Was that the Argo Apartments?
Los apartamentos Argo.
Ujú, creo.
¿Sí o no?
Sí, a donde a él lo arrestaron. No me sé el nombre de...
Yes, where he was arrested. I do not know the name.
Do you remember if it was apartment D126?
¿Recuerda si era el apartamento D126?
Sí,
Yes.
So who got the apartment? Do
¿Quién?
you know who secured the apartment for everyone?
¿Quién consiguió el apartamento? ¿Quién lo alquiló para todos?
Argenis Ibarra. Estaba a nombre de Argenis.
Argenis Ibarra. It was under Argenis.
So when you arrived, when you and Jose arrived to Athens, who was already living in the
Cuando
apartment?
usted llegó con José, ¿quiénes ya estaban en Athens en ese apartamento?
Diego solamente.
Only Diego.
And then when did Juan Carlos join you at the apartment?
¿Y cuándo fue